Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Ewan.
Hello.
Hello Ewan. We're very much just going to react to the ongoing controversy around the new Spider-Man Peter Parker's face, which since we sort of looked at the comparisons last night, we've been in a state of disarray. There's various comments from the creators, from Brian Intihar over at Insomniac, but the point is that for the PS5 version of Spider-Man, the 2018 game that's being remastered, they've just completely redone Peter Parker's face model, and it looks, at least for where we're concerned, a lot worse. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really weird. There was already some controversy going on around kind of the remaster of this game and the fact that it wasn't going to be, like a free upgrade and instead bolted onto like a deluxe edition of Spider-Man Miles Morales. And, Insomniac, they showed it off for the first time yesterday, and the actual game itself looks absolutely stunning. I was looking at it on my TV yesterday and I couldn't process the frames, man. The frames are coming at me so quickly. I was just like that bit in 2001: A Space Odyssey, or maybe that bit in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory where they're going through the Tunnel of Doom when you get to the bit where you realise that Peter Parker isn't the Peter Parker that you've known it to be the entire time. It just looks really weird. They've recast the original face model, who was John Bubniak, with a man called Ben Jordan. And the results are, well, he kind of looks like Tom Holland if we were going to call the next Spider-Man film Spider-Man at Home, because it just looks like a weird Uncanny Valley situation where you have...
It's like they couldn't get the license, so they had to sort of do, this weird other version.
It's meant to be, I get it, right? I am a 24-year-old man, and I look like a baby without any facial hair. I completely sympathise with Mr. Ben Jordan. But there is a reason why Tom Holland, who is also a 24-year-old man, was cast to be a 16-year-old or 15-year-old Spider-Man, and it's because the dude looks young. And Ben Jordan looks very young as well. He looks like a teenage Spider-Man, and when you're kind of processing this, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of why I think this is so bad soon, because I do think that some of the backlash is slightly overly emotionally charged, like it is just a video game at the end of the day, but it is very weird and very, it raises some weird questions. We'll get into Insomniac's response here first, and they basically said that in order to bring the best performances to players with our next generation's Marvel Spider-Man games, we have recast the face of the first game. We have recast the face of Peter Parker. We loved working with John Bubniak on the original game. However, to get a better match to Peter Parker / Spider-Man actor Yuri Lotenthal's facial capture, we have cast Ben Jordan to be the face model for Peter Parker on the PS5 console. He looks incredible in-game. And Yuri's movie performances take on a new life. So it's just a case of, I definitely think, it is more detailed on a purely technical level. He does look more detailed, And if I was going to criticize anything about the original Spider-Man, kind of model, is that the face was fine. It was just the clothes he was wearing were all pish. He couldn't dress himself. Why you got a shirt over a shirt, mate? It just looks really bad. But it's so bizarre. He just looks so young. And the thing for me is that, why have you sacrificed narrative continuity just for the chance to make it look like Yuri Lotenthal's cheekbones match up better with this guy? And again, I'm coming at this topic from a position of ignorance because I'm not a video game developer. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes and how, the different technical challenges that are in place for this current gen of consoles. However, if I'm going to make a decision between, this Spider-Man that audiences have got so attached to, and I will, I'll go on a limb and say that Spider-Man PS4 is the best Spider-Man story that we've had alongside Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, in several decades. It is absolutely incredible what they do with the character in terms of how, the character has stagnated in the comics for a long time, at least Peter Parker specifically, and the game took that forward, and you have this amazing interpretation of him, as a young adult or whatever, and then you divest from that by getting rid of the face but keeping the voice. And again, I just don't get why prioritize. Just no one cares about if his cheekbones are going to look a little bit better in the PS5, man. Just why? The thing is,
I do wonder. Obviously, yes, the reason on the development side is, look, we tried to up-res, we tried to add more detail to the original guy's face or whatever, and we were unable to do so. So we had to go, hey lads, we need a new face. Now, for me, I can go with that, I guess. I do think it's a bit strange that so far I guess we've only really seen Doc Ock so far, so there's potential. They could have run into other problems with other cast members. But the thing that stands out to me is, one, the PS4 version is still going to have the original face. So continuity-wise, like you said, I mean, more people are going to have played that version anyway, because just by de facto, less people are going to buy a remaster. So it's interesting going forward. Do they then pick a face? Is it going to be a whole thing where they decide which one, people took to, kind of thing? I kind of don't believe that you can't up-res a face. The amount of the things we could do in gaming and in technology and whatever, and you can't do that. So there's the whole version split thing, PS4 version, PS5, but also, like like you said, the age thing. The whole story is very much written around a career Spidey, and like you said, it's not like a fresh-faced 24-year-old. I guess he's 23 in the story. Can't do that stuff. Can't go on and have a do career. You can't do a career Spidey with a fresh-faced Spider-Man, fresh-faced Peter Parker, but. It's going to look really weird when he's hanging out with MJ. It's going to look really weird when he's hanging out with Miles. And it's going to look doubly weird when he's hanging out with Black Cat because she's coming on to him very, very strong. And he just looks like he wants to go home and get a glass of milk.
Yes, the age thing is a thing, and again, like I said earlier on, there are some people who are 24 who look less 24 than 24. It's just one of those things, and that's why Tom Holland again was cast as a younger Peter Parker, because the dude looks very young.
And that story was all high school based. It made so much more sense.
Yeah, exactly. And again, looking at, if you look on the Twitter trends yesterday when the backlash was occurring, the main thing that was trending wasn't Peter Parker. It was Tom Holland. Ben Jordan's face looks so much like Tom Holland in so many different ways, and if it's an unfortunate accident, then fair enough, but equally I find it very peculiar how they made that. I feel as though maybe Insomniac kind of underestimated just how drastic a decision this was. Spider-Man PS4 was a very narrative driven game. The story was fantastic, so to then take that character-driven element and then just basically go, oh, it's a different guy, but he's still got the same voice. It brings it into the uncanny valley just a little bit too much.
It also makes it a little bit lesser of their version, because you're suddenly reminded of Tom Holland. And one of the things, I tweeted this out, one of the things that I love the most about it, it feels like Insomniac's take on the mythos, on the canon, and even though you can, some people maybe never liked the face that they went with, I always did, because it was just different enough, and I like that. And so even though this one, it can be more detailed, it can animate better, whatever. I guess we'll see proof in the pudding in the cutscenes when we see more of him in motion. But I just liked how much the 2018 version felt like their version, and this feels like it skews too much towards knockoff Tom Holland.
Yeah,
it just looks weird.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Intihar, after the whole controversy kind of really kicked off, I mean, literally every single tweet is being ratioed. There are about a bajillion replies. I've seen trailers go up on YouTube with really bad dislike ratios and stuff. He basically put out a statement later on last night. It wasn't a screenshot of a Word document. He put his phone at the screen and took a photo of it. But he said, today's news about the new Peter Parker face model has surprised some of you, and we at Insomniac totally understand your reaction. Heck, it even took me a while to get used to Peter's new look. But as we discussed the franchise's future and moving to the PS5, it quickly became apparent that delivering even more believable looking characters made finding a better facial match for actor Yuri Lowenthal, who we all love as Peter, a necessity. We care as much about this character as your attachment to him, so please know we didn't make this decision/change lightly. As we did throughout the development of Marvel's Spider-Man, we'll continue to read your comments, listen, and always be looking for ways to improve every facet of the game. At the same time, I hope you can trust us that this decision is what we feel is best for the future of the franchise and our upcoming goals for this beloved Marvel character.
Well, ultimately, underneath everything and going forward, yes, I do trust Insomniac, and ultimately, if that's the thing, if this is going to lead to better performances going forward, that's cool. I just think that obviously there's a massive obvious jar with just how much a completely younger face model jars with what we were used to for the last 2 years, and the way it lines up thematically with all the different scenes that we associate with that face, all the different interactions that he's had. Even just the base aesthetic of the way that the original, is it Bubniak face?
Yeah, John Bubniak, yeah.
The way that dude looked next to the guy that plays Miles, that was a great look. And it's so simple, it's such nerd rage, but it is that thing of just well, we liked how we had it before, and we didn't want you to change it.
If in the next Spider-Man game, because I don't know if Peter's going to appeal on Miles Morales or not, I don't think he will, but in the fully fledged sequel that they're going to do, if Miles and MJ don't just look at Peter and go, did you get work done? And then just I can maybe get away with it that way. And again, it is, the more I look at it, the more I live with it, the more that this spectre of Peter Parker just fades away in the distance. I can get more used to it, but it just seems like such a pointless change, and it's one of those things where I wish video games in terms of prioritizing, if you're going to make a very narrative driven experience and a character driven experience at that, I think they meant, Brian Intihar mentioned that he didn't take this decision, they didn't make this decision flippantly or whatever, but I do feel as though it is the wrong decision. That's just me again. I'm coming at this from a complete point of ignorance. I'm not a video game developer. I don't know the challenges that they experience, but to me me, if I was going to prioritize anything going forward into the next gen, it would be narrative continuity and not trying to basically make it like there are some things that shouldn't be sacrificed just to get to the next generational leap, and that's why this kind of sits uncomfortable with me.
Especially when the Doc Ock face looked identical. You know, and it's like, oh, well, we managed to make this face work, but we couldn't make this face work. I think if they were a bit more, if they'd announced this, you know, months ago, whenever they first started doing this, because it would be months worth of rendering time to be able to completely replace the face, re-render the cutscenes, etc. I think if they'd done a series of design docs, just sort of doing like, you know, like, oh, you know, we've ran into this problem and we're going to reveal the new face soon, or just to let you guys know that this thing's going to happen. I think that would be a bit, it would be taken a hell of a lot easier than here's the new remastered trailer, and you know, you're just supposed to expect or accept that this is the best way for this stuff to look, when it very much doesn't. So yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of the new face. Maybe you're a fan of the new face, or you miss the old face. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
And I've been Ewan from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next face. Bye.
Face off. I'm going to take his face.
Time
off.